In the last 6 years or so, since I started doing the Quo-Cast, I have talked about status quo compilations many times, whether unofficial or official, and on many formats as well, such as cassette, vinyl, CD, but this one is new to me, not something that I have discussed previously. In the late 2000s to around 10 years ago, there was this trend for bands releasing their material onto loaded, as opposed to blank, USB sticks. Something that was quite a trend years ago, the USB stick. I used them a lot for college work back in the day. And so music companies started issuing these, and Quo had their go at it back in 2008-9 when they released Pictures 40 Years of Hits, which came out on CD, and it also came out on this loaded USB stick. The idea being that you put it in your computer and the music, along with a few other goodies as well, is there ready for you. In the days when we still used desktops, and laptops were very popular then as well. Now this has become something of a relic, because I think we mainly use mobiles and tablets these days. But this is still a little curiosity for collectors, and that is why I'm showing it here today, to show you what is actually in this package. So it came in this presentation case, which looks nice and shiny, and on the back we have the track listing for the album, 2 CDs worth. So that looks really nice and something you can just put up on the shelf. And then as we open it, you can see that it's in the shape of a guitar with green on one side and white on the other, with the 2 red dots there signifying these are Francis and Rick guitars. You also have the little button there as well, which you can push out to then put in your computer or pull back in when you're finished. Now the design on here mimics the Pictures design of the time, but only on the green there. And on the end you have a keyring as well. So you can attach this to your keys, and then wherever you happen to be, you can just stick this in a computer and play some of Quo's greatest hits. Now as for the album itself, I will cover that in more detail in a future episode, but the thing to realise here is that 5 years prior to this, you had the Excess All Areas, and then before that, Whatever You Want, the Best of Status Quo, Rockin' All Over the Years. You know, there had been many compilations, and this, as opposed to the last one that also had a few kind of live favourites in there, but this one is mainly singles, and it's sort of a smattering. There are other editions of this album on CD where you can have the whole lot, especially the earbook version that is out there. I must show mine one of these days. So what about this actual product? Well, the way that this works is that you put it in your computer, which looks really nice up here, really fetching. It reminds me of like the modern day Tony devices that you can get for your children. And as you plug it into the computer, what you see is the album, which you can stream from the stick or you can download it. The problem with the audio, there's a couple of issues, is that it's in 160 kilobytes per second, which I think if you're listening on the computer or just in general, you're not going to notice too much. But most of the files these days, and this is where the product probably ages a little bit, is 320. I certainly try and put podcasts out at that bit rate. rather than 160. But just for general listening, I don't think it matters. The other thing as well, which I've seen in many reviews from the time and since, that there seems to be a fault, and I have no idea whether they fixed it, but Burning Bridges, popular track from 1988, there's only half the song on there. It's about 1 minute 30, and it kind of sounds like when you used to go onto iTunes and you click on preview, and that is the preview that you would get, and it's like someone's accidentally put that on there. It's a bit of a shame, but if you're not a fan of the song, it doesn't really matter. But if you're buying it, it's wary to know that that is the issue. So in addition to the music, you've also got wallpapers. There's a screensaver on there, which does work on modern computers. You do kind of worry that with old devices that they don't work in the same way, but this one seems to. There is the liner notes on there. You can see artwork from singles. There's a few bits in the gallery as well, and a low bitrate version on video of Scooter versus Status Quo Jump That Rock, which kind of puzzled me, but you have to think at the time that was like the then current single, and I don't think it's on this version of the album, but they've put it on. They put the video on there, which is quite cool, I guess, but now you can get the video in much higher resolution elsewhere. So this product is very much a product of its time. I can't remember the last time I saw a USB stick, loaded one, being stored. This made sense in the late 2000s when, as I say, I was using them to store my work, when people stopped burning stuff on CDs and started putting them on these things where you could just put them in your backpack, go home, work on it a little bit and then come back, put it back in. It was the ultra portable thing, and the music industry were obviously just trying to capitalize on that portability, and I certainly would have used this and plugged it into the Mac at college to get the music. But as well, I had an iPod, so I almost didn't need this, and these days I think this is really just a collector's item. It looks great, plugged into the computer, and back in the late 2000s was using laptops more, so that would have looked great, although the problem with memory sticks was you'd have them plugged in the side there, and if you knocked them or anything, you could break the end here. So you'd end up bending it and it would get broken or not work particularly well. So that was the setback with those. But this is a product, it gave something else for them to sell to fans, and something that at the time made sense. Now, pretty much, I think, collectors only, because the album itself, I think you can get it quite cheaply on Amazon on CD and whatnot. And I remember buying the earbook and it was like 10 quid from Universal themselves, I think. But tell me, did you buy this back in the day? Did you use it? And would you buy something like this now? What would be the alternative now? Like, what other format could Quo appear on? I have a Yoto player for my child, which is like this clever device thing. It's like this little thing where you can put like a card, like the cards you get at like hotels, and you can put it in and it plays music or stories. I think it's mainly, for like stories and stuff. But bands like the Beatles and Elton John, Paul McCartney, they have utilized this technology, and you can get cards with those albums on. It would be great if Quo could do similar at some point, perhaps with a greatest hits compilation or something similar. That would be an interesting idea. You could have, I mentioned the Tony thing, which is kind of the competitor to Yoto, and what you get is like a figure, and then you put it on top of the unit and it plays. And to have something like this sort of guitar thing on top would look really cool, but I think you'd have to personalize it even more to Status Quo in some way. That's just some of my ideas. Do let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you again for another episode of the Quo-Cast.